Okay, so before we begin 1.1 notes tomorrow, Thursday, 8:20, it's always customary that we have sort of a short little lecture about our cultural core. We ask the question, where does America get its code of ethics? Where do we get our morals? Where do we get our values, our principles, religious principles? Where did all this come from? Bear in mind, we do look at this from, there again, a European perspective. There were a lot of things that the Puritan/Pilgrim got from their interaction with the Native American. And so no way do we want to, undermine the Native American in any way. We just start there again because this is sort of what the curriculum wants us to implement. So we just start with Puritan and the Pilgrim. There again, bear in mind, we did get a lot of ideas, governmentally speaking, from a work perspective from the Native Americans. And so certainly white Europe European anyway, should be most grateful for the assistance of the Native Americans. And so we do want to make mention of that as well. But we will begin there again with the Puritans and the Pilgrims as far as, how we developed that cultural core, if you will. So what you're going to have to do here, you're going to have to watch the lecture. You're going to have in a separate tab or the outline pulled up, and as we go over these notes, you need to fill that outline in, and it would be preferred that you turn that outline in. Now bear in mind, you'll still be able to keep that copy. So this is always just customary that we do this first. Now please remember, tomorrow we'll start the 1.1 notes. Those are the notes in which, there again, is the state curriculum. We always just do this because, it's just good practice to see where we get, that cultural core value. And I'm gonna be honest, from 1607 to 2020, these cultural core values are still manifested or seen in society in America today. So there again, it is very form-fitting to go over this. Now, there again, we won't try to go over this in, a quick manner. So I'm not going to, just waste words. We're going to try to go through the notes relatively quickly here. There's a lot to go over. We're just going to expound on maybe a little bit as far as each slide, and then we'll move on. You may have to play this back there again to be able to fill that outline in. All right, so first thing we want to look at there again is American moral, ethical, and religious convictions. All right. The Puritan ideas established much of the cultural core of our identity as Americans. All right, so please remember that. The Puritan was the first group to come to the New World. Please remember, they were encouraged by England to come to the New World. They were explorers for England to come to the New World, to generate ideas, to find natural resources. Okay, so don't get that in your mind that it was just 100% wanting to break away from England. Of course they wanted to break religiously, but England was paying for their voyages or help funding those voyages, because there again, they wanted a set of explorers to inhabit and find resources in a new world or a new land. Okay, so when the Puritan comes to what we associate as America, they will begin to establish that cultural core. All right, some examples that include the cultural core would be a sense of morals, or an element of morals. Puritans believed that they had a covenant with God to create a perfect Christian commonwealth in the New World. If you know anything biblically, you know that God dealt with his people as far as a covenant. And of course, a covenant is an agreement. Okay, so there again, they brought agreements, all right, with each other to the New World. They brought agreements as far as citizen and the government is concerned. Okay? And so basically the operation of government is like a covenant. Okay? People obey the body of laws established by the government, and in return the government protects the people. Okay? That's a covenant. All right? So a covenant springs from the morality, so to speak, of the Puritans. Okay? So we get this idea of a covenant from them. Very important that you're able to see that. The notion that there again, as it says in the notes, America holds a unique mission in the world to spread and uphold democracy, to be a city upon a hill, that they would show the world that they are going to be a group of people who have agreements with each other and who has agreements with the government. All right? How do they get all that? Because of the covenant they have with God. All right? So let me make this analogy, okay, and we'll move on. All right? Very important that you're able to see this. All right? So because they are covenant-minded people, all right, they obey biblical principle, and in return, God provides blessings on them. God provides protection to them. All right? So their relationship with God is a lot the same way that they wanted to establish a relationship with a government. Okay? Very important. Now you see this. Here it is. All right? The government is established. They obey the body of laws. Okay? They obey the principles of the government, and in return, the government then protects, all right, the people. Okay? Everybody see that? Okay? That is what is referred to as a social contract theory. So if there's one thing that the Puritans bring to the New World, it is the idea of the implementation of a covenant. Okay? And this comes from the Bible itself. Okay? Very important that you're able to see that. All right, moving on. Ethical as well. Puritans valued hard work, self-sacrifice, but also material success. Okay? There again, type A workaholics would we associate the Puritan. That behavior often leads to heart attacks, manic compulsive activities. But there again, the Puritan had a drive to work. Okay? All right, very important that you understand and see this. All right, when we first come to the New World, there again, you need to remember that the colonies experimented with communism. Very important that you see that. All right? Everybody, was on the same playing field. Okay? You're going to see that system disintegrate in a hurry. Okay? The young people worked harder than the old, but they got the same amount as the old people, so they didn't like that. Okay? They got frustrated, and the productivity diminishes in a hurry. All right? You're not going to probably hear much about that in a textbook, but yes, the early colonists experimented with communism, okay? What you might say, a social experiment, and it was a complete disaster, just like socialism, just like communism is even today, all right? So after, there again, they dismissed the idea of communism, they took on the concept of capitalism. All right, where everybody is in charge of their own doings. All right, what happened to productivity? Productivity began to increase. Okay, the more you work, the more you are rewarded, the more you individually benefit. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. We have the tendency to say that the early colonists wouldn't have survived without the Native Americans. There is truth to that, but I'm going to be straight up with you. The reason why that we survived what we did was because we scrapped communism. Okay, and we took on capitalism. Okay, and if you don't believe that, go look at some primary sources. Okay, from the governors of that time period, from 1607 to 1620, and paraphrase, these governors would say that the idea of communism slowed down the work and capitalism increased it.
If you would, please call the office with the time of the PLC meetings today.
Okay, hard work, people. Hard work come from Puritans. Morality come from the Puritans. Moving on. Religious, okay, is another core value that is still even intact in America today. Puritans believed that human beings were inherently evil and must struggle to overcome sinful ways. All right, so there again, Puritans recognized that in order to be a better person in society, they had to possess the kind of moral integrity and the likeness of God. All right, so they heavily attached themselves to biblical teaching. That was the only way that they felt that they could have an element of success. And then as you go throughout the course of American history, you're going to see that reform movements would spring from, a religious perspective. So there again, such as abolitionist movements, civil rights, early women's movement, all of this come from, a element of religious fervor that was found amongst the people, whether we're talking Puritan, whether we're talking a Pilgrim, or even later on in your Second Great Awakening in the early to mid 1800s. All of those movements were generated by a religious background. And this right here really sets the tone for education, all right, in America. There again, colleges such as Harvard would be established in order to be able to read and understand the Bible. Puritans believed that the greater education that you possessed, the better that you could read the Bible, the better you could align your life with the Bible, and the greater success that God would give you as a result of that. So religion/education plays a huge role as far as Puritan is concerned. So there again, morally, ethically, and religiously, those particular core values, the foundation was laid really early, okay, by the Puritans. All right, a code of ethics. Puritan women held little power in the public sphere, while in the private sphere they were expected to lead by example. Fading idea that women should be domestic. But that is where that particular core value sprang from. There again, the women had their sphere of domesticity. Their place was in the home. Their place was, raising the children, being the moral compass, so to speak, guiding the home place, whereas the man then would be, on the front lines as far as work is concerned. And you still got people to this day that believes, that's the way that it should be. And heck, if my wife could do that, and she would offer to do it. If we had the ability to do that, she would love to be able to do that, and I would love, for her to be able to do that as well. I mean, that's just my opinion. I know we don't have anybody in here to debate that or discuss that, but maybe we can do that, at a later time frame. But unfortunately, in today's time, it's a little more difficult to do that. But there again, this is where we get, that concept from the Puritans. All right, so modern America's foundation is built upon puritanical ideas. Okay, there again, they are prevalent to this day. All right, so they are single-minded visionaries convinced of a cause leading to perceived arrogance and intolerance for ideas that were not their own. All right, so they're not going to drink a lot of Kool-Aid when it comes to anything, that sort of goes against their core teachings. So they were single-minded, not a lot of open-mindedness. All right, when it come to, external or outside sources there. So they were a very tight-fit group of people. There again, their religion and business was intertwined. They thought that material success was a sign of living virtuous life. There again, staying close to God, and that His grace is the only way that you're able to put one foot in front of the other, that you're able to do what you do. Okay, and so their religion promoted economic success. If you don't work, you don't eat. Okay, that would be sort of John Smith's statement, 1608, which is in the classroom behind us here. There again, this goes back to that communism versus capitalism. Okay, communism, is totally unfair as far as the way that it does things, especially in the work side of things. All right, they looked at it and says, we look at this as an individual thing, and God's going to bless us if we work, so we're going to get out and we're going to do it. Okay, so capitalism, their religion, and their understanding of biblical principle all was sort of intertwined together, so to speak, and this motivated the work ethic, okay, amongst the Puritans. And that still is prevalent in our society today, okay? Just keep that in mind. The definition of a Puritan, there again, Protestants that wanted to purify the Church of England, okay? The Church of England had heavy traces of Catholicism. There again, a denomination of Christianity that doesn't, what you would say, align with the Puritan idea. And so, therefore, they felt like they needed to purify the church. As you see here, Puritan equals purify. Your root word here, of course, is pure. And if there couldn't be a purity, then there would be a separation. And indeed, that was the case. Okay, so that's what led to the migration to the New World. Okay, so here is just a diagram as far as the Christianity split. Now, a lot of this sprang from the English Reformation. Okay, the English Reformation was brought about because now English-speaking people have a Bible in their hands that they can read from, okay, that they can practice from. All right, so when they read this Bible in an English translated version, they're able to read about kings, corrupt kings, and how that these kings were destroyed by God because of their lack of submission to Him. When they start to see these things taking place in their motherland, they too want to separate themselves. So the English Reformation and an English version of the Bible done very much to motivate people to want to separate where they thought there was inaccuracy. And Roman Christianity was very predominant in the Church of England during this time period. Okay, so as you see in this particular diagram here. Now, the Pope in this particular day was the world's Supreme Court. Okay, you didn't have a Supreme Court. You didn't have a United Nations, so to speak. So if there was a dispute, whether it be land boundaries, whether it be kings who wanted a divorce, as you see here in King Henry VIII, you would ask the Pope, and the Pope looked at King Henry VIII, who of course wants a divorce because he is wanting a male heir to the throne, in which he's having a very hard time getting. So it doesn't bother King Henry VIII to divorce. It doesn't bother him to behead. He'll do whatever he needs to do to be able to advance to the next wife, and in which he did on numerous occasions to be able to try to find that male heir to the throne. But the Pope failed to give King Henry VIII a divorcement, a bill of divorcement, you might say. And so as a result of that, King Henry VIII says no to the Pope, and there again starts to separate himself from the Roman Catholic Church. And he is going to take a lot of the English people with him along the way. All right, so the Protestants then will separate from, the influence of the Roman Catholic Church. And eventually the Protestants will break away even from the Church of England. So that's just a diagram that you see here as far as how that the English Reformation in a roundabout way led to the Puritans dismissing themselves from England. King Henry VIII wasn't doing it because of religious reasons. He was doing it for personal reasons. But indirectly, he too led to the Puritans' break from really that Roman Catholic influence. So the Puritans, please remember, want to purify the Anglican Church. Okay, Pope on my right, and you see the King Henry VIII on the left here. Handsome guy. All right. Anyway, examples of Catholic Church and the Church of England as far as the Anglican style of churches. There again, you don't have to add anything to this. These are just visuals for you to be able to see. Okay, very, very old world as far as, you know, the style of churches. Puritans were kind of against this because there again they are very simple people, and so these are very high in structures. A lot of the services were very ceremonial, man-made traditions, and the Puritans really didn't follow along with that. This was another thing that was leading to a particular breakdown. Doctrinally speaking, this is the main split as far as Christianity is concerned. The Catholics, this is the way that they look at it, that if man is going to be able to obtain a relationship with God, he has to go through a man-priest, or man-made priest, so to speak. Okay, the mediator is not Christ, the mediator is priest. Okay, that's the Catholics' doctrinal teachings. The Puritans, there again, a different Christian denomination, disagreed with this. All right, they said that in order for man to be able to reach God, he needs to be influenced by the teaching of a minister, a reverend, and a pastor, and he too then would have to make that free will or free choice of the acceptance of God. Man doesn't necessarily need a priest. He needs a minister to preach and teach and expound the Scriptures, and then man can go directly to God with a sinner's prayer. Okay, very much likened to what we have here in Robbinsville, as far as the way we associate with worship. Okay, and I'm not saying everybody. I'm just saying, that is the majority anyway. Okay. Examples of Christianity today, there again, Roman Catholic, Eastern Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, Maronite, Coptic, Chaldean, etc. Okay, some of these, may be new to you, you've never heard before. Some of your major here are Protestants, your Baptist, Lutheran, Methodist, okay, and you can see others as well on that slide. All right, Puritans in England were referred to as nonconformists. Sometimes another term we can use is dissenters. There again, they would refuse to follow the Church of England's belief and practices. There again, their main arguments, as we've already said, was false ceremonies, non-scriptural teachings, and a lot of traditional type rituals that they felt was extremely unnecessary. First thing the Puritans are going to do is flee to Holland. There again, they're going to reside there for a period of time. The only problem is that their children and a lot of their English customs is now being, what you would say, overlapped by Dutch tradition. And the fear is that the English is going to lose a lot of their customs. And so because Holland is already a developed area, they thought it might be best to try to reside in an area where there is less development. So this led to the generation of the idea to go to the New World, a place where it may be more undeveloped, a place where that they would have an easier way to build a society patterned after God's Word. So this led to boarding ships and setting sail on this very difficult journey. And if you've ever been to the Jamestown colony, you need to go to the 3 ships at some point in time and get in those ships, and I've had the pleasure to do that with replicas. Of course, the original are long since gone, but they've made replicas, and I don't know how in the world, okay, that group of people was able to do that. That would have been extremely miserable, but it just shows you that these people were serious about, fleeing and going to a new world where they can practice their religion, their work ethic, as they so desire. So, freedom, of course, comes with a price. All right, the Puritans believe there again is humanity's damnation. All are damned because of Adam and Eve's original sin, in desperate need of a Savior. So God sent His Son Jesus to the earth for some to be saved. Okay, who is saved? There again, in their mindset, it's unknown. many of the Puritans had the tendency to practice the theory of predestination. Okay, one's life has already been predestined or predetermined. There again, that also can be referred to as Calvinism or hyper-Calvinism. God will choose who's saved and will, at birth, and there's nothing you can do to change that. Okay, you can do nothing to help yourself become saved, so you live your life as if you have been chosen. It's really not until the early 1800s that predestination and the idea of predestination begins to fade away. And your preaching and teaching is more centered in and around a free will and a free choice, which, in my personal opinion, is the correct interpretation of biblical principle or doctrine anyway. And so there again, that eventually fades away as far as many of the teachings of the Puritans and predestination is concerned. So, but yes, that was manifested amongst the Puritans. They did believe in God's grace. You could feel grace arriving. This was shown by your behavior. Puritans believed that idle hands are the devil's playground, that you should be active, you should be busy. And I myself have had grandparents or great-grandparents, implement to me or state to me that very, same quote, idle hands are the devil's playground. You may have heard your grandparents or a parent talking, that this is what, my grandparent or great-grandparent said when I was little. So there again, that is just evidence that, a lot of their values and principles, are passed down through each generation. Okay, so I've heard that countless times, and there's certainly elements of truth to it, no doubt about it. But anyway, the virtues, there again, they're very industrious, diligent, hardworking people. It is safe to say that the Puritans valued education, the Pilgrim on the other hand, and there is some distinction and a differentiation between the two groups. Puritans put more value in education. Pilgrims would put more value, I think, in hard work. The Puritan was probably a little higher on the social ladder than the Pilgrim because of, there again, just being more educated as far as, people were concerned. But that doesn't undermine the Pilgrim in any way, or I don't want to do that. They were very hardworking people, and so they followed along the same lines as far as the virtue. Very industrious, very, practiced temperance or self-restraint, self-control. Sobriety was, taught, and an element of simplicity as far as these people. And that is manifested in people today. It's seen in people today. So it's what many Christian people practice, not just here, but, for the most part, in all areas of the United States. There again, didn't feel like an intermediary was needful. He doesn't need a middleman to talk to God. There again, that's the opposite of the Catholic belief. Believe that you could go directly to God when you humble and you submit yourself to Him. Okay, Bible is the supreme authority, sole God for governing moral, spiritual, and societal situations. Churches were becoming more democratic and not led by bishops, because there again, over the course of time, we would go to that free will, choice, and people then are going to be more involved in church and giving more of their input in church and their own elements of worship. It doesn't always have to, service doesn't always have to be led by one single individual. Okay, so Bible is supreme authority there. All right, a pilgrim there again is someone on a journey to a holy place. Puritans were on a pilgrimage to salvation. And yes, there are distinctions and differentiations between the two. Okay, the pilgrim there again, like the Puritan, look at the Bible as the literal Word of God. Okay, emphasized education. There again, started public schools and Harvard University. The whole purpose was that it was a necessity to read the Bible. Puritans believed in baptism and the Lord's Supper. They didn't believe in confession, penance, confirmation, ordination, marriage, confession, and the last rites. So some of the things that they didn't believe in, that was practiced by other denominations. All right, so and in the adornment as well, extra decorations not in the Bible is not accepted. Please remember, these people are very strict. These people are very simple. Didn't feel like they needed all that fancy architecture when it comes to worship. All right, so here is just a visual to see an Anglican church outside and inside. Okay, very old world, so to speak, very high end as far as the way the Puritan would view it. And here is your Puritan church. Okay, being where we live, looking on the outside, of course, we're a little more up to date than the picture that you see here on the right. But looking on the left here, you see it's very similar to our church structures today. So there again, that's just, self-evidence there that, we still have a lot of those values today. Okay, as far as some of the writings, very strong, simple, logical diaries and histories recorded God's work. Okay, in Revelations, God revealed his purpose through the Bible, through the natural world, through divine providence, God's direct intervention into man's affairs, being guided by his will. So they firmly believed that God would speak to them. Okay, having a relationship, God would reveal himself, whether it be through the Word, and they needed to be educated, they needed to study the Word, that they could look, at God's natural revelation, and God would inspire, God would speak. Or there again, through divine providence, God stepping in and manifesting himself, maybe through a sickness, through a sorrow, through a trouble, through something that may be in their life. And he would intervene, and this would inform them that God, is in control. Okay, so that's the way that they believed God revealed himself. All right, so here's just real quick the voyage, September 6th. We're almost through here, 1620. The Mayflower departed from Plymouth, England, and headed for the America. By the time the Pilgrims left England and had already been living on board the ship for nearly half a month. 66 days, departure September 6th until Cape Cod was sighted November 9, 1620. Now, their goal was to try to reach Virginia, where the Jamestown colony was, had been since 1607. But of course, the wind blew them a little further north. Okay, Atlantic storms, as you see in the notes, and they reside in Plymouth colony, or developed the Plymouth colony in Massachusetts. Okay, so there again, you can take that and add that to your outline. I don't know if you have to fill out anything as far as this part of the outline on the notes, but there again, that's just to let you see a visual here as far as the ships in that day. Okay, you don't have to do this. There again, Puritan challenge. If interested, keep going. Each of you are a Puritan family about to embark on a long and strenuous voyage for a country that you have never seen before. Due to the limited cargo space, your captain tells you each of you may only bring one small trunk of items. Furthermore, each of you are allowed only 3 items in each trunk, total of 9. There again, you don't have to do that, but just think about that in your mind. Decide what 3 items each of you must bring to ensure a successful life. I'm not asking you to do anything. Just think about it, in your mind. What 3 things, would you have? All right, so you should have the notes here to be able to fill this outline in. Be ready tomorrow for those that are in class or even those that are virtual. Be ready to tune in and be ready for 1.1 notes, and those notes you will have to write. All right, have a good day.